Hello friends, I wanted to send a message to you all during these days where yesterday we celebrated the feast of the triumph of the cross, and today we have the Memoria of Our Lady of Sorrows. And I know that this is a time for many of us where our lives are getting busy again. Here in England, our children have just gone back to school, and we're being encouraged to go back to our normal places of work. And yet we still find ourselves with the uncertainty and the unpredictability of everything that comes from this coronavirus and all the restrictions that it imposes upon our daily lives. Yesterday in our liturgy we heard about the Israelites who had been set free from slavery. They'd been set free. And then they began their pilgrim journey, their wandering in the wilderness, you could say, their discovery of life together as a community. And in the midst of all that, they began to moan, to complain. They began to feel sorry for themselves. They became inward looking. They became self-focused. They became short-sighted, a people with narrow horizons. Now, we might think about this in the situation we find ourselves today, that suddenly, beyond our control, the whole world has been affected by this pandemic. And what has been our reaction? Well, I'm sure we've all had numerous reactions, but some of those will have led us from being a people who were outward looking, faith-filled, hope-filled, gospel people to becoming slightly, or even more than slightly, self-protective people with narrow horizons where maybe we've become a little bit locked in on ourselves. In biblical imagery, the serpent represents the tempter, the one who comes to derail, to destabilize us, to rob us of our sense of purpose and destiny. And in that liturgical reading yesterday from the book of Numbers, Moses was given the remedy. He was to fashion a standard, to raise up a pole with an image of the serpent. And he was told that anybody who gazes on that will live. Now, the key thing was to gaze, to look upward, to lift our gaze. And then the people could see new horizons. They could be set free from self-preoccupation that often leads us to anxiety and to fear. And they could gain that wider perspective. Some of us on our pilgrim journey have erroneously picked up the notion that any difficulty, any suffering, any trial that comes our way is all part of our cross. And therefore, as we go through life, we become resigned to carrying heavier and heavier crosses. And we pray for the strength to carry our load. Now, friends, that's not quite how it's meant to be. Yes, Jesus did say, if anybody wants to be a follower of mine, he must renounce himself, take up his cross and follow me. But the cross which Jesus was referring to is the cross we carry because we're followers of Jesus Christ. Not every little difficulty, not every little challenge is meant to be part of that cross, because Jesus also said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light if you come to me. So the cross isn't about strength. The cross isn't about mustering through gritted teeth enough strength to carry our burden, to somehow get through. The cross isn't a mystery of strength, but it is a mystery of helplessness. Now, where do you find yourself in this season? And I know that many of us find ourselves helpless. We're not able to do the things in the way that we've always done them. We're not able to go about our daily lives in the way that we used to. The world seems to be operating in a different way, and we can feel very weak. We can feel very impotent, but our lack of strength and our impotence can make way for the Lord to triumph in a new way in our lives and in the world around us. The Carthusian monks, the great monastics, have a symbol, and it's a symbol that's often found on the entrance to their monasteries. And the symbol is that of a globe, the world, and the world is surmounted by the cross. And the motto of the Carthusians, the words that are often around that symbol are, the cross stands firm as the world turns. The cross stands firm as the world turns. You see, the cross doesn't stand against the world, but the cross stands for the world, with the world, in the world. And the cross is able to give meaning to the suffering that has been, the suffering that is present, and the suffering that will be in the history of humanity. The cross is planted in the world for all eternity. And that's a place that I often go to in my prayer, because I know my little world, with all its seeming preoccupations, is actually very small. And when I take my world into the big world, I gain a new perspective. And when I see that cross of Jesus Christ planted in the world for all eternity, I gain a new horizon. So as we gaze on the cross, as we look at Christ crucified, in our fears, in our anxieties, in our helplessness, through Christ, we're able to gain a new strength. A strength that enables us to say no to sin, no to those narrow, selfish horizons, and to say yes to life. Even in this restrictive way that we have life at the moment in the midst of this pandemic, we want to say yes to all that is good, to all that is noble, to all that is true. And we want to embrace that life that Jesus Christ won for us on the cross. By his death and by his resurrection, he's gained for us the widest of all horizons. We want to say yes to embracing that civilization of love that comes through the cross. So today, when we think in a special way about our Blessed Mother. This memorial is called Our Lady of Sorrows. And every woman, and certainly every mother, knows what it is like to have those maternal concerns for others. And we know that our Blessed Mother's heart was pierced, that she went through a lot of suffering. She held a lot of things in her heart. And yet, at that moment of the crucifixion, we find her standing at the foot of the cross. She was not destroyed by all that pain, that suffering, that violence, that agony. She was able to stand. And she was able to stand because she knew that in that moment of the cross, there was a earth-shattering, world-changing moment of victory. And you and I, friends, can stand with all our difficulties, with all our challenges, with all the sorrows, with all the burdens. We can stand today with our Blessed Mother, knowing that we can stand in the shadow of the triumph of the cross, that we can stand in that place of love, and that we can become love for the world around us. So we pray for the intercession of our Blessed Mother. We pray that we may always live in the shadow of the cross, and we pray that we will live that triumph of love in our world. Amen.